So welcome to the second role model chat. Today we have Sophia here from Facebook. Sophia, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah. My name is Sophia Chung. I'm an engineering manager. I'm actually Oculus, which is a company that Facebook recently acquired. For those who don't know, Oculus is actually a company that works with virtual reality. I've been at Oculus for about 6 months as an engineering manager for Oculus Touch, and I've been at Facebook for about 5.5 years. Prior to Facebook, I also worked at Google for 3 years. I worked at Electronic Arts, making video games for 8 years, and Hewlett Packard for a year before that. I'd love to kind of like talk through. Do you hear me okay?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of noise coming from the library. I don't know if I can. Hey.
Hello.
Okay. I'm just gonna see if I can mute them for the time being.
Not me? I don't have to leave until I call.
Yes. Okay, I muted them for the time being. Hey, Cynthia, are you Cynthia? Are your students joining?
Something not right.
Okay, I've just muted them for the time being, and we'll see if they decide to join. Yeah, so maybe you can start.
Yeah, talk a little bit about Oculus. I don't know if anyone has actually tried an Oculus or seen Oculus. Oculus actually builds virtual reality. I bought a few headsets for you to kind of see kind of what the stuff that we build on. This is an Oculus headset. You guys have seen this. So you actually wear it over your head. And when you're in here, there's like headphones here, and there's an external sensor that you attach to your PC. And this sensor actually works with the Oculus. Can you? So when you are in virtual reality, you actually get a full sense of being in the space. You can look 360 around you and see a full 3D environment, and you can start interacting with it. So these are what the headsets look like. So this is what it is. I just want to show my awesome customized headset. I put googly eyes on mine. So when I am in VR, this is what I look like. And anything about virtual reality is you have a full sense of presence, which is something that really excites me. We've actually noticed that when you go into virtual reality, we've shown things where people are really, really high up on top of a building, and you're looking down into a street full of cars. And even though you know you're in virtual reality and it's not real, people are unable to take that step forward because you just have that gut feeling of like you have that sense of reality that is actually you would actually plummet down to the ground. One of the very early versions of virtual reality, it was a ground with a giant sinkhole in front of you. And again, just even though you know you're in a headset and you know it's not true, it's hard for you to make that mental leap to step forward knowing that there's actually ground there. Something that's really cool about virtual reality is that you have the sense that you're actually in the space. So one of the first things that people do in virtual reality is they do this. They bring their hands up because for some reason having your limbs or having your space in front of you, that gives a real sense of presence. So one thing that Oculus has been working on recently is Oculus Touch. So just to show you that, these are touch controllers. There's actually two. You wear one in each hand, and I can show you this. And once you have these controllers, this actually gives you hand presence in virtual reality. So you can actually point, you can have thumbs up, you can grab things, and this totally changes how virtual reality works because now it's not just about looking at things around you, now it's about you can pick things up. If there's someone else in reality, you can hand things to them. You can throw things, you can shoot things, you can grab things and push things, and it becomes a really immersive world where you can actually manipulate the world around you. So virtual reality is still in the very beginning of being developed, but starting to have hand presence, plus that is being a complete immersive 360 space, that's actually what gives you a real sense of being in a completely different dimension. Oculus does two products. One is this is the high-end PC version. So to use this, you actually need a PC, a high-end PC with strong CPU. So CPU, you need to use the sensor so it knows the location. But there's actually also a low-end version of that as well. So that's what will give you the really best, like beautiful visuals, really, really immersive virtual reality experience. But there is also like a more low-budget consumer version for virtual reality, and that's the Gear VR. So this is something that you actually take phones. So this is like actually a Samsung S7. So there's 4 Samsung devices where you actually use the phone and you click it into this headset using micro USB. When you click that in, it actually converts your phone into a virtual reality. It changes the display to 2 images, and you can actually wear this, and that is actually now also a virtual reality experience. The interesting thing about this is actually a much lower point of entry. Where this one, Samsung did a promotion where they gave these away for free if you bought a phone. So this one actually hit, millions of people are actually able to experience virtual reality. Whereas when you go for the Rift version, this is a pretty expensive high-end device, where these are really for enthusiasts, the people that are willing to spend, $600 plus a $2,000 PC to experience virtual reality. This is more available to everyone. Obviously, because this is a lower-end device, and this is also the screen is quite not as good. You don't have the PC backing it, so it's not as powerful. You do get a kind of lower experience of virtual reality, but it's a really good introduction to kind of understanding what this virtual reality is. So we kind of see this as this is a broad market consumer virtual reality, and that's kind of the high-end space. So when I worked on, I'm the engineering manager of Oculus Home. Oculus Home is the software that sits on top of Oculus. So when you first put on a headset, you will instantly see this beautiful 360 house around you that you can look around, and you'll see these 2D panels in front of you that you can actually navigate, and it's very much kind of like, you can point and click, and then you can actually go to the store, you can buy content, you can launch your apps, you can find which friends are online, and you can actually start, navigating the space in virtual reality. So we build Home for both Gear and for Rift.
Gotcha.
I'm happy to take any questions you guys have about, virtual reality, my experience in the industry, or anything you guys have.
I do have a few questions.
Yeah.
Just while no one's here. How many axes do the gyroscopes have to have for such fine movement? And do they work on more than just an XYZ coordinate plane?
That's interesting. That's actually that's a really good technical question. I'm in software, so I actually don't work on the very specific. You're talking about the controllers specifically, or the headset?
I mean both, really. I guess.
Yeah.
The actual wrist.
So I don't know the specifics of the controller, but it is more than X, Y, and Z. So X, Y, and Z will give you position, right? So X, Y, and Z is going to give you this way, and this way. But these controllers also do pitch, yaw, and what's the last one? Pitch, yaw, and roll. So pitch is going to be when you angle up and down. Yaw is when you tilt side to side. Yaw is this way, and roll is like this, right? So there's going to be more than just, like X, Y, and Z is just positional, but we also have to understand, are you tilting a certain direction? Are you pivoting? Are you rolling? So you have to take into account all those things, and we're actually looking at relative to the sensor. So the external sensor detects the positioning within the controller, or also within the headset. The headset itself, you can't see it here, but there's some infrared things under the hood that are actually communicating to the sensor to detect, are you looking down, are you looking up, are you moving forward? That really kind of communicates with the sense of the position. So that's actually not a part of the piece of the software team does, but a separate team called Vision, and Vision is actually what really determines how do we understand from the sensor to the headset or the controllers what the position is. We're recently added a second sensor so you can get a more fine range movement, and we're now actually supporting a third sensor so you can put something behind you. So as you spin around in virtual reality, we never lose sight of your motions and what you're doing. That's a great question.
Thank you. I lost my pencil.
Good luck finding it.
I have one right here. This will work.
Hi. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I'm trying to help the other team get back in. But it looks like there are also several people, kind of watching. And so we welcome you to ask your questions, like just type them into the, typing place on the middle side. Someone has a question, it looks like, from Paula. Is Facebook getting into the education world with VR?
That's a very interesting question. So for Oculus, we're looking into building the platform, right? So the platform doesn't mean like, we started off building a few first-party software. So Oculus did build a game called, I'm blinking. It's an alien game, Farland. So there's a first thing called Farland, and we're really working.
See, I just see me, and we can't hear anything. And that's my laptop again. Let me just.
Oh, sorry. So yeah, so Oculus first built some apps in-house. So we built Farland, we built a short video called Henry, and we're building a lot of content right now to kind of seed the ecosystem because there isn't a lot of VR content right now. Our longer-term vision isn't that we're going to build everything in-house. Like, we'd be silly to think that Oculus itself can build all the VR content. So we do want to build a platform. That means we build a software layer for other people to build on top of. So that's the org that I'm a part of. It's software and platform. And that is where you think about how do we make it so people can upload content into the Oculus ecosystem? How can they understand what the positioning of the controllers are so they can use that in their games or with their apps? How do they use our Oculus identity? You find it knowing, like, my name is Sophia Chung, this is who I am in Oculus. How do they use that information in their apps to, personalize the experience? So kind of building the bridge between here's what we provide that Oculus knows about you, your position, your name, your location, your rotation, your input, when you click on the controller. We have microphone in here, so when you're talking. So all the inputs we get out of the system, we want to make it available to developers so developers can actually build content within VR. That's where the education part comes into play a lot. So we are funding educational software. So a lot of the company does is we actually, I think we committed $10 million in next year to help people build educational software. And that's what I'm really excited about because VR right now, it started off as more of like people that were gaming enthusiasts. So it's more about, shooter games or zombie games. I think that's a really fun experience for VR. But the longer-term experience for VR is not going to be in gaming. It's really going to be about experiences. So if you think about the shift from textbooks to internet, there was a big shift in how do we consume information at that point. So from a textbook, you're reading things. In the internet, there's a whole new way of how do we consume information. I really do think VR is going to be the next leap. So instead of looking at things or reading about things from a 2D space, we're going to learn about things by experiencing it. So imagine you want to learn about the human heart. Instead of reading about it and seeing diagrams on it on paper or on the screen, put on your headset. Now you're shrunken down and you're inside the human heart, right? You look around, you see the valves pulsing around you. You suddenly have a way more immersive understanding for how things work. You can imagine, I don't know what Paris is like, or I don't know what it's like in India. You can look at pictures, but instead of looking at pictures, how about you go in VR and suddenly you're transported to a whole new location and you can understand things on a whole new level. So I really think that's going to be the future of VR. It's going to be about experiences and education and really giving people a new medium for taking in information.
I'm looking at my questions here. I just have
this
giant sheet.
I can answer them too. Someone asked if anyone's walked into a wall. Yes, that is, yes, they have walked into a wall, and you have to be careful. So there's a few things. So on the Gear VR, they're actually, you have rotational tracking, but you don't have positional. So that means if I'm looking at something and I lean forward, it goes forward with me. On the Rift, because we have these external sensors, as I lean forward, it actually gets closer to me. That's what we call positional. So positional gets dangerous because that's when you start moving things around me, especially with touch. Like before we launch touch, most people stand pretty static and then look around. But once you add hand controls, then suddenly you're moving, you're having a lot more of an interactive space within VR, and that's where it gets a little bit dangerous because you want to make sure that people, well, obviously people have their headsets.
Okay, then I've got you on speaker now.
We actually built out a new system, which is called Guardian. Guardian is something that allows you to, in VR, you take your controller and you draw your safe space around you. So imagine you have a room, you actually take the controller and draw the boundaries for where you're going to be playing. And then when you actually are in the headset and you can't see the space around you, we're able to know if you're leaning more too far towards like a coffee table, a wall, in virtual reality, we will pop up a wall to be like, hey, slow down, like don't lean too far in that direction. You're about to hit something in real life. So the definite safety measures we have to put in place because you can't see when you're in the headset, unless of course you have my very special like goggles on. But realistically, you can't see. So yes, you have to be very safe about how you protect people from their environment. This is a good question.
Gotcha. I walk into walls plenty of times, and I don't have any headset on.
Right.
All right. What is your favorite part of working in Facebook Oculus?
My favorite part is a few things. One, I think different people are motivated by different things, and I'm someone that's very motivated by what I'm building. So VR is something that's so exciting to me because it is brand new technology, and it's very exploratory right now. So you can think about, I told you I'm really excited about how I think VR is going to shape our future for how we consume information. And I think right now, even we don't really understand VR right now. There's things that we're still figuring out. So right now in VR, a lot of people actually get motion sick. People actually feel sick when they have their headset on. And the reason for that is when you're in VR, sometimes the scene moves around you and your body's not moving, and there's a disconnect between what your mind thinks is happening and the pressures you feel in your body. And that actually makes people, they actually feel nauseous. And some people, honestly, they actually throw up from it. So it's something that we're just learning. Like, basically, we learned that when you are in VR, you can't take the camera away from the user and show them something different. So if I'm looking this way, you can't take the view and turn a different direction, because that's a disconnect between the mind and the body that makes people sick. We learned that if you don't have good performance, so that means the view that you're seeing, if it's choppy and it's not showing a smooth transition, that makes people sick. So there's a lot of things that we're learning about how do we build a technology so it's comfortable, it's safe, that people understand how to use it, how it's intuitive. Even the user interactions are something that we're just figuring out. So right now we have a pretty good understanding of how people use the web. People click, people drag, even on the phone. Like, we have a long history of understanding how people interact with 2D surfaces, right? We are familiar with the mouse, we're familiar with touchpads. But VR is a whole new space. So we're just understanding, what does that mean? We understand point and click, but is that actually the best interaction in VR? And maybe it's not. So maybe actually if you are in VR, you take something and you grab it, and maybe that's the best way to indicate that you're interested in it. So there's a lot of things that we're exploring with that I'm super excited about, that it's a brand new set of experiences that we just have to figure out right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Looks like the question have a question. You want to ask it?
Why is virtual reality important?
Why is it important?
Okay, why is virtual reality important?
So I talked about it earlier. I think it really is the new
question.
Why is virtual reality important? Yeah, so I would talk about it a little bit earlier. I really think that it's going to be the new way that we consume information. I talked about the leap from when we go from books to internet. That was a big leap that we had in terms of how do we learn things, how do we understand things. And I think going from internet or just any kind of 2D surface to experiencing things in dimension is going to be a brand new way for how we experience things. But I think this is before you guys got here. My example was, if you want to learn about the human heart, instead of reading a textbook and seeing a diagram, you put yourself in virtual reality and you're shrunking down to go and finding the heart, and you see the ball that's something around you. And that's a brand new way to experience and learn about things. So I really just think it's about building education. And then one thing I didn't talk about is the social dynamic of it. We actually have a demo room here at Oculus where you can be in 2 different rooms from someone, and you're both in virtual reality, and it feels that you are in one room, and you can actually have physical interactions where you're handing people stuff. You're having a very visceral reaction where you can actually interact with people. That actually, I think, is why Facebook really acquired Oculus. They see this whole new dimension of social interactions that people can have in VR. And you can imagine, for me, my mom is on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast. And I can imagine maybe 5, 10 years down the line, instead of having a video conference with her, we can both go into VR and we can actually talk to each other as if we're in the same room and experience things together. Cool. Any other questions?
So Declan has a question. He's in 4th grade. He says, do you think VR headsets... can you guys hear me? Okay.
You got for a bit there, but
Declan says, do you think VR headsets will be able to navigate in life?
Yes, so we are actually working on that right now. So as I mentioned earlier, the way that we understand position in VR right now is that we have this sorry? Oh, I missed that. So we have an external sensor right now that understands position. And the way that works is that this sensor communicates with this headset for the location. We are actually working on something completely different where it's more of a portable device where it will have inside-out cameras. So that means there will be cameras on the headset that will be looking out into the world and understanding where things are in front of you. So you can imagine instead of being right now for the Rift, you're actually tethered, right? You're tied to your PC, so you can't go very far. And that's mostly because you need the sensor to understand your position. Once we get to a place where these headsets are completely wireless and you can walk around with them, and there are cameras here that they can actually detect the world around you, then you can absolutely move through space in real life. That's actually where augmented reality and the virtual reality come into play. So virtual reality is in a completely new environment space. Augmented reality is when you see the actual world around you, and you actually can modify by putting, it's kind of like Pokemon Go, right? You see an environment, but you see like a little Pidgey sitting there. You see a Pikachu here. These two technologies will eventually like come together with a mixture of augmented reality and virtual reality, and you'll be able to explore that through the real world. I see that Mark has a question that says, can two people connect through VR? Yes, so we're absolutely working on this. I think that's a core part of why Facebook and Oculus partner together is we really do think that having people together in virtual reality just makes the experience so much better. If you've tried virtual reality, it's really fun as a player space. It's fun to see the world around you, but once you add that second dimension of someone else is in virtual reality with you, and you and your mom who's halfway across the world can walk to the Museum of Paris together. You can watch a movie that you guys want to watch together. You can listen to music. You can play pinball. You can do a lot of these social experiences that really changes the dynamic of how engaging virtual reality is. So absolutely, Facebook is absolutely like, we have a really strong at the core belief of that social is really important for how we connect people, and that's really important technology. And Oculus with the virtual reality, these two are definitely coming together. Cool. So someone asked how long I've been
so I've been Oculus for about. She says that
Oculus.
Hello.
Sorry, it's cutting in and out. I didn't catch that.
Oh, I hear.
So I think John had a question about how long before VR is mainstream.
How long before VR is mainstream? It really
so
depends what you
John
consider mainstream. Yeah, how long VR is considered mainstream. Yeah, so it really depends on what you consider mainstream. The interesting thing is for the Gear VR, which is what I was talking about earlier as the kind of like entry-level consumer VR, there's actually 3 million people in the world that have these right now. So that's, I don't know, that's not mainstream, but it is a decent amount of people that have experience in VR and are actually using VR. It will take a while for this to become like an everyday thing for all the households, part of the reason is because this is such a new technology. This is pretty expensive, right? I mean, this is like, this headset itself is $600. So you really have to be pretty invested in VR to purchase one of these and get invested in this one. This one is cheaper, so a lot of these are promotional items and they were free if you buy this phone. But if you didn't catch the promotion, they're about $80. So it's still not cheap, and I think a lot of it is going to be, we have to bring the cost of this down so everyone can afford it, and we also have to make it so people can experience it and they see the value of it. So one thing that we're doing as a company is we actually have demo stations where people can experience VR. So if you actually go to a Best Buy or a Microsoft store, they actually have demo stations where you can actually try on any of these virtual reality headsets, and you can see what it's like. And hopefully those are going to good taste to get you excited about VR. And those are hopefully get more and more people to understand the vision of what the future is. Someone asked how long I've been with VR. I've been at Oculus for 6 months. But
Aiden, do you have another question?
Yes. Oh.
Okay, go ahead.
There is a 3D video option. Around you can actually look around in the 3D video.
Sorry, you were cutting in and out. Something about 3D 360 video?
Yeah, so 3D.
Can you repeat the question?
That, Aiden? I also didn't hear.
In video. Right.
Or maybe you can.
So Aiden, could you actually type the question? I think it's cutting in and out. Somebody in the audio. Oh, we lost him. I can answer a few other questions that I found that people typed out in the meanwhile. Someone asked how long I've been in VR. I've been in VR for about 6 months, but I've been at Facebook for 5.5 years, and it's essentially the same company now. But prior to Facebook, I also worked at Electronic Arts, which is a video game company for 3 years, which has some similar kind of experiences in terms of building in the 3D world. And someone also asked if we can play games like Minecraft in VR. Yes, absolutely. So Minecraft just launched in October for the gear, actually on PC as well. So you actually can play Minecraft in VR today. Even today, you can download it and you can play it in VR.
All right, is my audio back? Is internet working for me now? Okay, cool. All right. So YouTube 3D video, or 360 video, sorry. Is there a way to link the Oculus with it so that you can actually move your head and you can move around in the 3D video?
Maybe Sophia is cut out or something.
She's frozen. Oh.
Oh, okay. She cut out, but maybe she will come back. Cool. I think she's. Did you guys have a question that you wanted to ask Coding Chicks? Okay.
Oh. Hello.
Hey, I'm back.
Hi.
Okay. Yeah, I will ask that for you guys.
So I was saying, yes, for 360 videos, you can turn your head and look rotationally around the video, but you can't actually lean forward in the video because the video is actually not a 3D scene. It's actually just a camera where it looks in all directions.
Right.
I don't think there's an easy way to link Oculus videos with YouTube at this moment because Google owns YouTube and they actually have their own virtual reality platform called Daydream. I mean, hopefully, I see a world where virtual reality is like 360 content is 360 content. We'd be able to access anywhere. But unfortunately, the reality is that there are different companies in play where they are kind of trying to grab at the VR content and make it a compelling place for people to join. So we support 360 videos from Facebook. There's a few other, like Samsung has some 360 videos, and there's different apps that build 360 video content. If you want to do 360 video from YouTube, I think a lot of people actually use a virtual desktop where actually you can cast your computer screen in virtual reality and you can actually still see this content.
Gotcha.
Okay, so the Coding Chicks had a question that they told me about women at Facebook. So they're wondering if the number of women at Facebook have increased since you joined and kind of like what Facebook is doing about getting more women to join.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if the numbers have actually increased or not. It's honestly, it's not great, and I think part of it is like there's a pipeline issue, and the pipeline issues means that we have to get people like you guys like interested in these kind of careers early on. So there's an unfortunate stat where I think the number of women that are graduating computer science degrees, I think is only 22%, or it's not a very high number, and especially when you go into virtual reality, because I think the origins of virtual reality actually came from more of a gaming culture. Those also tend to be more male-heavy. But we are doing a ton to try to change this because the reality is virtual reality is not going to be a gaming platform. It's not going to be for men. It's really important to build technology that works for everyone. Actually, one interesting story someone told me is that when, because the company is so male-heavy, the first time a female put on the virtual reality headset and she put on her hands and she looked it up, she's like, oh, no, these are man hands. And the funny thing is, like, because so many people that built that, like, they didn't think to consider it for a different gender. But if you are a female and you see kind of large male hands, it takes away from the experience, right? Because that's not you. That's not who you are in VR. So it is so important for, different people with different diverse backgrounds to really contribute to making this technology something that everyone can use. And that's the same thing for Facebook. When I joined Facebook, it was a very young company. It was probably most people were early 20s. So a lot of things that mattered to them or that they could actually understand, it was different from what the world actually needed. So for example, for the longest time, they didn't support the idea of being able to tag your child's photo on Facebook. That's an example. And because if it's a group of 25-year-old men building it, they don't have children, so they don't think about these kind of use cases. And it became a problem because people started tagging the parents when they tag a kid, and it just kind of made everything not correct, right? It was not the right way to tag things. So it really takes kind of a parent to understand, like, hey, I want to build up my child's identity on Facebook, and I want to have correct tagging. And someone like that can drive the product to understand that there are use cases that are not set to a specific demographic of person. So I do think it's so important for women to understand that there is absolutely a role for you in this space. Like, it is a fantastic career. I love what I do. I actually, I come into work and I enjoy what I do. It's a great career. I have 2 kids. I have work-life balance. And I'm really excited that I'm involved in building the future of technology. So a lot of it is going to be, reaching out to people. Like, I do things like going to Grace Hopper Conference, which is the largest women engineering conference in the country. I do a lot to talk to girls in high school. So really getting them interested in technology at an earlier age and kind of encouraging them to pursue technology. Part of the concerns also is that there's not a lot of women role models in technology. Like, when you think about the great technical leaders, you think of Mark Zuckerberg, of Steve Jobs, of Bill Gates. So it's really hard to relate when you don't see a role model. So getting out there and really inspiring women to get excited about this space is something that I'm really excited about, and the company has been doing as well to kind of get out there.
Yeah, thanks for that question. Aiden, do you have another question?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. If the power of technology was unlimited, where would you take Oculus from where it is now?
Yeah, I really want. So there's a few things I want to do. One thing is like, this is not cool, right? Like this, like wearing this on your head, it's like, it's awkward. You can't see anything. It's really early stages of what virtual technology is, and part of that is because the technology is limited, right? We need these like large lenses inside that are far away from the user to project this screen. We need comfort in the headset. We need to be tethered to a really high-performing computer to make this possible. So what I really want to see is this actually becomes, imagine the lenses get flat, so it's more like glasses. Imagine that you don't need a high-performance PC where you're not tethered to this PC and you can actually move around in space. Imagine having cameras that are inside out, so you don't need this external sensor to know where you are, and you can understand position and rotation without all that stuff. Eventually, it should be something that's so easy. It's like sunglasses where you put it on and you can actually experience virtual reality and augmented reality without the bulk of, without this like cumbersome hardware. So I think in 5-10 years, we'll see the hardware get smaller and smaller and smaller and a little bit more closer to what we will actually wear in real life. And we'll see the need for the computing to become less and less and less, so we're not requiring really high-end CPU and GPUs to run actually all this process to make this possible. And then it will become a very commercial and something that everyone can actually use every day and experience day to day.
Cool. John asks if Oculus has worked with any private space companies like SpaceX or Blue Origin to design virtual worlds.
So again, we try as much as we can. We don't want to build out like content within Facebook. We want to build up the platform so people can build on top of Facebook. But we are seeing a lot of really cool uses. Like for example, NASA is thinking about, they're actually working about how do we build astronaut training within VR? Like astronaut training right now is so expensive, right? You have to build an entire chamber, you have to do zero gravity, you have to do like huge rooms to like train people to go into space. But actually all you can do is you can simulate that environment within VR, right? That's so much cheaper. So they can build software that can simulate what it would be like in space. And that's a great training model. Same thing, we're actually seeing medical, you know, learning how to do surgery, learning how to do these things that are just, you know, the cost of educating someone, of training someone becomes really high. Instead of that, simulate that in virtual reality so you can learn how to do those things. So when it becomes the time to do it in real life, you can do that. So we're starting to see education, training, even like commercially, like you can imagine a car company, right? Instead of actually going to a physical showroom and jumping in a car and trying it out, and looking at the books of different colors you want. Imagine going to VR and you can say, let me see the blue one, no the red one, let me change the seats to gray, let me try this with a bigger engine. And you can actually experience what that is before you actually buy it, and that'll reduce the entire, imagine like the car dealership showrooms. You don't need 500 versions of every single car just so everyone can pick what they want. Once you can experience these things in software, it changes the game completely for how you, for what you do, what you need in real life.
Cool. Can you program in VR? Mark.
Can you program to make VR software, or can you, in VR, when you're inside VR, can you program?
I think they're asking if you can program while you're in VR.
Inside VR. So that would be hard. That is the vision. The vision is actually like, if this is the next computing software where you imagine you, instead of going to work, you put on a headset, and that, like, you're transported to your work environment. This is obviously like a 10-year plan of when we get there. But the problem is right now, honestly, it's difficult because you're in a headset. Input is difficult, right? You're doing gazing and tapping. There really isn't a keyboard. Like, you can't see anything, so it's difficult to actually type in VR. So we have to solve a lot of these like basic problems. So what is input? Input right now is point, click. Point, click. It's still really basic because we're at the very beginning of what VR can do. Longer term, yes. Imagine that you have that inside-out camera here where you can see the fingers moving and you can actually understand tactily like what the intention of the user is. So to this day, there's ways you can get around it. You can get a view of your PC, and you can sit in front of your computer and your keyboard, and you can type. So technically, yes, you can program in VR, but it wouldn't be you still need your PC, you still need a physical keyboard, and it will take time for us to actually develop the technology so you can be completely in VR and detached from your PC and program.
Cool. So the coding chicks also told me about another question they had. Are there any new features in Facebook that are that you guys are thinking about that are coming out that haven't come out yet? I don't know if you can say anything.
There's always new features in Facebook, and no, I can't talk about new features in Facebook because a lot of it is we build things and then we have public releases that people can learn about them. But Facebook is huge now, and Facebook is constantly experimenting and constantly trying things to see what people are excited about. Anything that I can kind of talk about that would be exciting. A lot of work within video. So videos is actually becoming a really popular medium for Facebook. So live streaming, how do you broadcast the stuff that you're doing? So imagine being able to broadcast yourself in Facebook, and you can think of even cute things like the Snapchat filters, things that you can actually do to again, a little bit more augmented reality, but taking the reality of video stuff and layering on top of it, interesting images so people can actually personalize and customize. There's definitely a big effort around there.
Hello?
Yeah.
What are some of the different career fields working on Oculus?
Oh, there's so many career fields. That's interesting. Yes. So there's so I'm the engineering manager, and that means that I support a team of software engineers. There's about 15 engineers that work on building Oculus Home. Other than engineers that are building the actual software, there's a product manager. A product manager is someone that thinks about the vision of what Oculus should be, and they're the ones that make the plan for what should it be, 6 months later, what should it be 1 year later, 3 years later. They come up with the features that we want to add to VR. There's also a data analyst. A data analyst is someone that looks at how people are using data. So for all the actions that you're doing within VR, we actually log them, and we have a giant list of, every time people where they're looking, where they're tapping, how long they're spending in VR. There's all the information. We anonymize it, but we have a good understanding for what people's behavior is in VR. If we're trying to go through a payment flow, where do people drop off? There's a lot of understanding for what the data is to understand how do we make the product better. So there's a role where these people are analyzing the data and using the data to help inform us for how do we make our product better. There's obviously also artists. So when you look around the world in home, there's actually a beautiful 3D world around you. That requires a huge team of people to actually build 3D models of the couch, the house, the tree, the fireplace. And even that, it's not just 3D models. There's going to be texture artists. So these are the people that are painting it and kind of layering the way that it looks on the model. There's also potentially animators. So now that you have hands in VR, these people need to take this model of a hand, and they need to show you how it can move within space. So these people are actually working with almost like a bone structure, kind of building a 3D models of interactions within VR. We also obviously have quality assurance people. These are people that are testing. They're testing and trying to break our device. They're trying to break the device, so when we go out to users, people have a really good quality device. There's also partnership people. These are people that work with our developers, so the people that build Minecraft, Microsoft, they're able to build on our platform. And there's also marketing. Marketing is also what builds our website, the people that help get these demo stations set up in Best Buy. So there's so many roles. There's legal. There's anything you can imagine. If you're excited about it and you're excited about VR, there's probably a space for you here. Somebody asked, what are the major limitations in creating a virtual reality? Programming-wise, there's a few things, especially. I'm getting some feedback.
You guys are super echoing. Okay, I think this is better. All right.
Some of the limitations a lot of it is graphics. So like this, when we program on the phone for the Gear VR, we don't have a high computing device here, so that means we have to be very careful about how we use our the processing. So things like the 3D environment, you want to limit it so we're not rendering a lot on the screen. There's a lot of things, like if you're doing physics in a game where you're actually like pushing in, like if you're making a lot of interaction in the game, those are really computationally expensive. So you have to limit kind of like the stuff that you can do. We have to, videos take up a lot of bandwidth, microphones. So a lot of these things you have to think about. You're limited based on what your processing power can handle, and those are the things that we have to be very careful about, because the more that you use, also the phone gets really hot. Like the more you use it, if you like are doing a lot of stuff where you're playing videos, you're playing sound, you're changing the environment a lot, like that stuff will make this phone heat up, and then it'll actually give you an error that says like, hey, your phone's too hot, you gotta take it off. So there's a lot of limitations for what we can do within VR, so it actually is a good experience for users. Someone else asked, what are the primary traits you look for employees? This is a good question because I do a lot of hiring, especially for the team. Obviously, you need the basic skills. So for the engineers on my team, you need to be able to program. So there's always an interview that says if you can program. One thing that I look about is just like being proactive and having a lot of initiative. So people that actually, like VR is a very new space, and very few people have a trained background in it, right? There's not many VR classes that you can take at this moment. So the people that actually go out of their way to learn it, and they will go to, they'll do tutorials, or they'll go to the Unity website, which is a game engine, and they'll download it, and they start playing with it, and you can make little demo apps. So really kind of like putting yourself out there and trying to learn the space without it being there's not a lot of like educational material out there for it now. So if you're really excited about it, you'll make the effort and do something in that space, and that's something that I like for it. So you can see the passion from people, and the more that the people that are building it are passionate about it, the better they will be when the better they'll be, and the more successful they'll be when they get here.
Cool. The Coding Chicks also had a question about how you got into engineering. Like, what was the path that you took? When did you first start coding? How did you get to where you are at Oculus? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I took my first coding class when I was in high school. And I was lucky, like my father, he's a mathematics professor, and my sister, she was also in computer science, so I had some good role models growing up. But I'll be honest, it wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy path because it wasn't a common career choice, especially among women at that time. When I was in high school, I was also a cheerleader, and as a cheerleader, you had to wear your cheerleading uniform to school. And I remember walking into my programming class one day wearing my cheerleading outfit, and my teacher just started laughing, and he was like, "Cheerleaders don't program." And it's funny because that was a very humbling moment for me, and it kind of caught me off guard. That says oh, maybe cheerleaders don't program. Maybe I shouldn't be here. But the truth is, at that very day, he gave back the first test of the quarter, and he called out the person that scored the best, and it was me. And it was actually hey, it was a very empowering moment to be hey, I got 100%. Cheerleaders do program. So I really do encourage you to push through stuff like that, because I think there are opportunities where people will second guess, because you are female, because you don't look like the typical engineer, that people will make assumptions. And I think those are really good opportunities for you to challenge those assumptions. And really prove them wrong, because I think those are the moments where we actually can rise above it and show that women can be good engineers. And I think there are more and more opportunities, especially for you guys now, where you can actually learn about programming. You can get good role models, and you can have the experience to do more, even whether it's in class or it's on your own, to get excited about the world of technology. So for me, I took my first computer science class, programming class, in high school. I went to MIT and I studied computer science, and then immediately after MIT, I worked at Hewlett Packard for a year before I joined Electronic Arts, making video games. Then I worked at Google for 3 years, and now I've been at Facebook, Oculus, for a while.
Yeah, do you have any advice for educators, primary students, in regards to preparing them for future jobs that maybe don't exist yet?
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that's great about MIT is, to be honest, when I left MIT, I wasn't a great programmer, and the thing is, that school really teaches you theory, right? Because when I look at people that when I hire, I actually don't care what language they program in. Like, if you program in Java, you program in C, it doesn't really matter because smart people are going to be able to pick up any new language, and it's really do understand the core concepts of, being able to write code. So I look for strong generalists. That means people that are able to pick things up. Are you smart? Can you navigate the code? Can you pick things up? Because people can adapt, and that's what's important about new technology. It's like when this new technology, if you spent your whole life building web pages, it doesn't necessarily fit with what you were doing. Or if you spent your life building video games, whatever it is, like technology changes. So being really deep in one space, it doesn't always fit with like the new technology. So someone that's really able to navigate different technologies and jump around to like a different code base, a different topic, build a web page, build a mobile app, build build a robot, like do things that are completely different and really push yourself to understand the different pieces. And I think then you'll be able to, jump onto new technologies as they come. When I came to Oculus, I didn't know anything about hardware. I never worked in virtual reality. But because I had a background in games, I had a background in building web pages, I had a background in building on iOS devices. Like I'm able to pick things up, and I think that's a good trait to have when you're thinking about looking into new fields.
When did Facebook start to conceptualize the idea for the Oculus Rift?
So Facebook didn't come up with Oculus Rift. We actually bought the company Oculus Rift. So Oculus, the interesting is this device was invented by a 16-year-old. So not too far from how old you guys are. Palmer Luckey is actually the inventor of Oculus. He was 16 years old. He had a passion for headsets, like this virtual reality headsets, and he's had a collection at home. And he just became a big enthusiast in terms of promoting it online. He then met John Carmack, who is a really famous software engineer who built some of the very early video games like Doom and Quake. And the two of them partnered to put John's game on the headset. So around, I think about 3 years ago, Mark Zuckerberg tried it out, and he was like blown away by the experience with it because how much it was like reality, and he saw a vision for the social part of Facebook and how it fits into virtual reality as the future of computing, and he purchased Oculus Rift for $2 billion. So it wasn't actually Facebook that came up with the idea. It was like Mark Zuckerberg saw an opportunity of this small company that was doing amazing things, and he brought them into Facebook.
16-year-old. That's impressive.
Better get off.
To show what you can do.
That's what's interesting. Is like it's not what I love about, especially Silicon Valley where I am now. It's not necessarily big companies that are making these big moves. It's really about really passionate people that are. You can be young. You can have no money. You can have just a great idea, and these are the people that are making big changes to technology. And you don't have to have like all the resources of a company and, all the software. You don't need all that stuff. A 16-year-old with he was toying around with different hodgepodge pieces of hardware that he was just playing around with. And that's what made it, that's what actually kicked off this giant trend of virtual reality.
Paula asks, who are some of your role models when you are choosing your career?
So I was really lucky because my entire family has been pretty technical. Like my father is he's a mathematics professor at Johns Hopkins University. I have two older sisters that actually were also in computer science. So I was lucky to have very close role models in my family that helped guide my career path. And I do realize that's not an opportunity for everyone. So I think role models are important. So I do encourage everyone, when you see someone that you actually really aspire to, I know it's intimidating and I know it's awkward to make an effort to talk to them, but really just make the effort to understand how did they got there, what do they recommend, even if it's not a close mentorship, getting advice from people that you see along the way that you really aspire to be can be really helpful in building your career and building kind of understanding what it takes to get to certain positions that you aspire to.
What projects did you work on at MIT?
A few things. So one thing I built was like a pinball machine. So we built a software version of like a simple pinball machine. And we also built, this is before the Google Maps days, but we actually built like a very simple, like how do we build out a map structure of the world that we can navigate and use that to kind of give turn-by-turn directions. And I'm dating myself because this is all before like web technologies, way before, Google Maps and Apple Maps. So these are like really, they seem small in comparison to like the apps that we have today. But back then there weren't these like mobile apps. Like there was no class for developing on mobile. There was no class about making a web page. So these are things that were like simple courses that we learned before all this technology really came up.
Cool. I think we have time for one last question. So, Aiden, do you have a burning question?
As a matter of fact, I do. If you could go back and give advice to yourself at 11 years old, what would you say?
That's a really good question. I would definitely tell myself to take more risks. So I was very conservative in terms of choosing my schools, my career path growing up. I was always a student that went by the books. So I did all my homework, I got good grades, I got straight A's. I did exactly what I thought I needed to do to get to the next step of my path. So what that means is I didn't do a lot of these passion projects. I didn't try to, build a side app. I didn't try to build a web page. I didn't join a club where I tried, making my own business. So I did a lot of the like by the books things of how do you get a good career, but I didn't actually I really wish I pushed myself and believed myself to try and do more side projects, and even kind of choosing my job out of school. My first job out of school was Hewlett Packard, and that's a great company, but it's a very safe company, right? It's a big company, and there isn't as much opportunity to like really disrupt the industry. I remember I told my mom, hey, like there's a new startup called Google, and this again dates me because Google was still a startup at that point. So I'm like, hey, there's a startup called Google. I'm thinking about applying. My mom's like, Google, I've never heard of that. Like, don't try to go to Google. And so like, things like that, like because it was risky. It's risky to go to startup. A startup might fail. A startup, you might not make money in a startup. Your income might not be stable at a startup. So those are kind of things that I ended up being more conservative, and I didn't take those risks. And looking back, like I do wish maybe I could have, not gone to a big company, and maybe I could have started my own company. Maybe I could have built my own app. And those are the things that like I really encourage, especially people at your age, to just start doing. They start doing the side projects. If you have an idea for what would make lives better, for what, like, even if you use your phone or like anything that you do, like it would be better if we had this in the world. Like, go do it. Go build a simple app to do it and show it, because those are the kind of things that really stand out when people start looking at resumes, and people start looking at when you hire someone. People that take initiative and build things outside of what's expected of you in the classes and the grades, those are really going to be the things that kind of push you forward in your career.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much to Sophia for talking to everyone, and sorry about the technical issues. There will be a recording of this that I can send out, so if the Coding Chicks wants to watch it in entirety, you can. But yeah, thanks.
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming, guys.
Yeah, okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.